This is Anthony Pascal.
And this is Laurie Elster. And we are here with one of the co-hosts of the Shuttle Pod and an editor at TrekMovie, Matt Wright.
Hey, guys.
So what we are here to do today is review the Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode 209, Subspace Rhapsody. We are not going to do news. We are not going to do bits at the end because while you're listening to this, we will be in Las Vegas at the 57-year mission.
Woohoo.
And we had to record a review of this. I wanted to record it all in song. The guys said no.
Sorry, I can't sing. It would be a fun gimmick, but I can't sing for squat.
We could use auto-tune or something like that,
oh,
maybe.
Gosh.
Yeah, because I can't sing either, so we have a problem. So this is the long-awaited, for some of us, musical episode.
Yes, long rumored, too. I think we've heard this in the whispers, like, for how long now? Even since season 1, I think this was this whisper of, like, they're thinking about doing a musical episode, right? Like, so,
right.
Yeah.
And then we started hearing, there was some episode where they had to come in on the weekends to rehearse.
Oh,
and as soon as we heard that, we all were bingo. Like, bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we heard Kurtzman talked about wanting to do a musical episode. I think when he was talking about short treks, and everyone thought it was going to be Discovery.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. So this has been coming for a long time. As Laurie and I said last week, it makes more sense to do it on the episodic show.
Oh yeah, you couldn't even justify doing it, unfortunately, on Discovery because it's serialized. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It's a shame though because
they
earned it, as we said.
Yeah.
But after watching this, I go, these guys earned it too. So
yeah.
Why don't we start with our overviews and start with Matt?
I was, pleasantly surprised by this episode. I really wasn't sure what to make of it, when it was announced. Then I started to see, they hired some people who, they were actually singer-songwriters. They actually did some of this for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which, I've never really watched, but I know its reputation for always having musical numbers, busting out in it. So, I was like, okay, that's a good sign. So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. It's not too crazy. It's crazy, but it's not too crazy. And I enjoyed it, almost all of it.
Tony?
Well, I said I'd go into it with an open mind. I did. It was fine. It was what I thought it was going to be. I don't like musicals, so it's hard for me to gauge, is this a good song? Is that good dancing? But I was mildly amused. I did like how it wove in together a lot of the storylines from season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't totally random. And, especially the character arcs. And so there was a couple funny bits. So it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it, but I probably will, besides for what I need to do for the site, for the reviews, I probably will never watch it again.
You'll never watch it again. That's all right.
Look, they've done others. When they do horror, that's not my genre. So I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't my favorite things. But I do love old musicals. And I have to say, I loved this so much. For me, it's up there with the crossover episode. I loved it. I've almost used up all my views of it. My 15-year-old was like, you are playing it too loud. So I think it's a little bit ridiculous how much I enjoyed it and really liked all the songs and the numbers and the way they did everything. And I always have issues. There's going to be an issue here and there.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I will be watching this many, many more times.
Watching it, I thought, okay, who would like this? And of course, it's kind of the demographic you think of, but I kept thinking of a mishmash of things. First off, they redid the title kind of a cappella style, which immediately made me think of Glee. So if you like Glee, you're going to like this episode, right? And then there's a lot of stuff. One of the songs totally reminded me of a song from Wicked. So again, if you like Wicked, you probably already going to like this episode. It just kept making me thinking of different shows I've seen or, things that I'm like, okay, so there's a whole, if you're a theater nerd, you're going to like this episode, but we kind of figured that would be true, right?
And look, we know there are going to be people who just hate it.
Yeah.
And all I ask of you people who hate it, you have your spaces to talk about how much you hate it, but don't come into the places where people like me are gushing about it and tell us how much you hated it.
Yeah, because it's just look, it's somebody. It's not going to be your cup of tea, and you know what? That's one of the beauties of Strange New Worlds is it is episodic. So okay, this one isn't for you.
I appreciated the technobabble that they threw over this.
I thought you were going to say effort.
Yeah, well, I
and
think
the effort.
that's code for effort.
No, I mean for the technobabble. Like they
Yeah.
tried to come up
They
with
tried.
a conceit
They
that
tried.
makes no sense at all.
No, but at least there's some kind of
Logic.
anomaly, timey-wiminess kind of thing going on.
I mean, I think there's even enough wiggle room for people like where they were in this quantum uncertainty field.
Improbability.
How many times did they say the word improbability? It kind of cracked me up. I felt like it was a skit from something,
So if you really hate it, just pretend it wasn't canon. Like pretend they were briefly in an
because
alternate universe.
They re-zip the rift, right? So maybe everything goes back to normal, and there you go. La 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 la. Not listening,
And I liked how they actually had real stakes in the episode.
Yeah.
Because of the threat to the Federation and the Klingons, and so that actually made you pay more attention, or at least I did.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought it was good that there's.
And I liked some of the songs. I really liked the La'an song.
Yep, that was good.
And of course, Sally Rose Gooding. I mean, I'm not a Broadway guy, but you can't deny that she's clearly very talented. She's a Grammy-winning Broadway star.
Exactly.
She was amazing.
The thing with her, they made us wait, right? Like they make it, because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, where's the big, I know there's got to be a big number for her.
Mm-hmm.
And they make you wait. And when they give you that payoff, it's so worthwhile.
It was great.
My favorite song in the whole thing.
It is. That song, I think, is the peak, like the best song. And it's one of the ones that I can actually see like standing alone. Like you could listen to that without the context of the episode. Because it's just, it's kind of
she gives
anthem.
a little bit of a narrative at the beginning that is, you definitely need some context for Hammer and my family.
You can ignore that, and it's kind of just like really nice, almost like anthem for who she is. And
yes, also within their songs, some of them transformed within their songs, which is a very musical thing to do, coming to those conclusions. And when they opened the first song that started. I mean, we have to review the story too. But when the first song started and Spock singing his status report and everybody's singing about like phasers and deflector shields.
That was great.
I loved it. And then why are we singing? Like it was just so, I thought it was such a funny thing. Like it was comedic at the same time. And family members who would wander in would, instead of the usual eye rolling that I often get when family members walk in, I got like laughs and smiles and oh my god, that looks great, even if they weren't going to sit and watch it with me, just because they could hear them singing about status reports and things, and it was very funny. It was really good. Funny. Yeah,
it was very good, like comic opera. Again, Gilbert and Sullivan. There.
And I did feel like when the lyrics got especially convoluted and not as natural, they counted on Rebecca.
Yeah,
with her Gilbert and Sullivan expertise to really, like she had to use the word thwart in a song, which I think is really hard to do.
Yeah, she got 2 solos, so I was surprised about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's the only one who got 2 of her own songs. So I'm surprised they didn't get Celia 2 songs.
I think Celia's the secret weapon.
Unless you count I guess
she
you
kicks
count
off the finale.
Yeah. So which was maybe the best song as well. But this is really, if every episode is usually about one character, and you couldn't really say that about this episode. But but if it is about one, it is about her. I think she makes the biggest emotional turn. She makes she kind of drives the story from beginning to end. In a way, this is her finally coming to grips with who she is and why she's on the Enterprise.
Death of her parents, all that.
Yeah.
No, and how she can turn what she's doing into something so positive. Like she Why Am I Always Alone was where she started the song.
That's right.
And then realizing she's the person who connects everybody.
Yep. It was lovely. Yeah.
I mean, this is going to make all of us feel old, but that thing at the beginning when she's doing the communications, I was thinking of like those old school telephone switch.
Yes.
I was thinking of Lily Tomlin.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all way too old.
Well, yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
I mean, yeah. Kids,
Well, if you
they can
watch
be like,
Mrs.
what?
Maisel, then you are
Yeah,
newly
Midge was
familiar
that's
with
right,
that.
switchboard operator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume that's what they were going for.
Oh, they definitely were.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. I
Yeah.
also loved Kirk and pulling out the wires and the Jeffries tube and like plugging stuff back in and playing with those. But I thought a lot of the characters had big emotional transformations that could have repercussions in
Yes.
future episodes. Like, I mean, La'an and Una for sure. Like, Una's made her decision. She's like, I am now gonna be a freer, warmer person. La'an is now considering maybe I don't need to be as bottled up as I've always been. And I think is this the beginning of Spock turning back towards his Vulcan
That's what I
nature
was
is
just
what I
gonna
felt
say.
like that was for
That's
sure.
definitely it. After kind of overcorrecting, right, with overly smiley freaking us all out in the
Freaking out Boimler.
Yeah. Me too, man. I've felt them. Yeah, I think this is the whole course correction, right? Of like, okay, that didn't work. In fact, it hurt me. It hurt me, to do that. So
He's the X.
Because he's the X, which that one, okay, I have to say that one was really cheesy. I did not, nothing on Ethan Peck. It's the lyrics. I think it was just so goofy.
Oh, I really liked, I mean, again, I'm a sucker for this stuff. His voice shocked the hell out of me. Like his voice
did a really good job.
I mean, we'd heard him sing in that short trek, but I thought he was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go through each person because they were all amazing. But that song kind of got to me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It feels like it's the cheesiest one of the whole group, which is, maybe that's saying something. I don't know.
I'm glad with the Lon, because Lon did have an interesting arc, and thank God they didn't have her hook up with Kirk.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for them to do that in the finale. By the way,
speaking of cheesy, by the way, the cheesiest thing in the whole episode were her either flashbacks or imagination scenes of them in the hotel. And
oh my gosh, with
I was like,
sheets.
Are we like making a really bad music video all of a sudden?
Yeah. That was pretty bad.
And the sheets, and he's caressing her face, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Although it does kind of like why Kirk seemed to be flirting with her, and then he's like, oh, by the way, I'm my
girlfriend's pregnant.
Yeah, it's like, dude, so.
Well, as he says, it's on again, off again, which
I guess he's planning ahead for I haven't done the math on this, but does that even make sense that this is David
Wrath of Khan? How old is David Marcus?
He's a scientist, so he has to have some training.
So he's got to at least, okay. So maybe he's
got to
like
be 20, 22.
Yeah, he's got to be at least 22 probably to make it through all that. So maybe that's right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So then we should say this is our first official sort of canon connection we're bringing up is Carol Marcus is very much name dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought was fine. Like that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it made total sense.
Yeah.
And also in terms of Kirk, setting him up like his conversation with number one, or the song that I enjoyed, that is his style of command. Like connect with your crew, goofy as the song was. That like he is a personal captain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at first I'm like, it seems weird that they're bringing him on, almost shoehorning him in, but then it there were good reasons in the end for Kirk to be there.
Yeah.
Although it does get weird when you're going that whole like, oh, I met him when he was promoted to fleet captain, and then we sang a whole bunch of songs together.
Yeah, I know.
I think Kirk forgets.
Yeah. If they're gonna throw that out, they should just throw it out because like whatever. Yeah.
I did think that long before I saw this episode, but I always assumed that it was going to be some kind of pocket reality and everyone was going to forget it because it's so absurd.
Yeah.
But they made sure.
Yeah, they didn't forget it. Yeah.
Well, Spock and Chapel broke up. Like during that song, she broke up with him with that song.
Yeah, I mean, they were on their way to breaking up, but
they hadn't done it yet. He like, as far as he was concerned, they had not broken up, but they weren't communicating well. And then she very clearly broke up with him.
Yes.
And we got another canon connection.
Yep.
Roger Corby. She's doing a fellowship with
Dr. Corby.
And then we know what happens next. So
yes.
So it's over for Spock and Chapel.
Yeah, because I mean, they have to be because she has to fall in love with Corby
and
while
get
she's
engaged.
gone. Yeah, while she's gone. Yeah,
right.
So
that they are, not only were they bringing stuff from this whole season, they're also setting things up for the finale. I think the most obvious thing they're setting up is, we didn't hear the word Gorn, but that's obviously where Marie is headed. Marie, we finally got a first name.
Oh yeah, we got a first name, Marie.
Here's my prediction: dead Captain Walking. I think she's going to die in the next episode. It was totally obvious to me from their final
especially now that
scene.
they've, worked out their relationship issues or whatever. Like now she's gone.
Yep. I feel like was called off to do this thing, called away, and that's going to be it for her.
Yeah.
And that's why they did this whole buildup of he's realized he really loves her and all that stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's too bad.
That's what it looks like. This is such the quintessential season 2 episode, in that season 2's been all about people discovering and exploring their emotional truths. And here they are, this sci-fi thing is forcing them into emotional situations for them to confront and work through these truths. It was hilarious when Lon's like, this is a security risk, because it's so
because everybody is saying secrets.
But I love the way they established that, because she is watching, like spying on basically Kirk and number one as they're doing their dance, and the implications of it. Anyone else is looking at them like, what the hell's going on? But she's looking at it, and the implications are sinking in so deeply that she knows she has to run off and be by herself when the music starts. She's like, oh, and she zooms off to have her big torch song, which is, I thought, was sort of like a mixture of a little bit of Elsa and Frozen, a little Let It Go, and then maybe a little like Rizzo, There Are Worse Things I Could Do. Like these women who finally sing their like, oh, I'm going to change, or maybe I'm not songs. Yeah. But she was terrified. And that's when she goes to Pike and says, we have a problem, and tries to get out of working with Kirk for the same reason.
So I have a question. Does Una know about the time travel? Because Lon goes to Una to get out of it, and later she says, I told Kirk. Like, does Una know what she told? Because she told Kirk everything, basically. Because Kirk's like, you shouldn't be telling me this, but she kept on going.
Yeah.
Talking about the other Kirk and everything. So she's basically forgotten the rules of Fight Club.
Well, she knew she was going to tell him anyway. She would never have told him otherwise.
Because it was going to come out in the song.
She was like, I'm going to start singing this to you in any second now, so I better do it. I wasn't sure if she told Una, like she basically said, like, it's a space-time issue. And maybe
it seemed like she tried
left
to,
it at that.
Yeah, it seemed like she tried to be vague purposely, because of course she's not supposed to divulge it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think Una, sort of being her wingman, was like, oh, okay, I got it. Like, fine. I gotcha. Like,
when they were floating.
Yeah, boy, that was
what was that for? I didn't get that.
That part I am confused
musical
about,
flair. Yeah.
And I'm going to ask the director, because I'll be talking to him.
I literally think it's just so they can have a twirl, like it's some, musically flair kind of stuff, like you would see in a musical. I don't know.
It was weird. I didn't understand the floating.
Yeah, it was pretty arbitrary. Like, okay.
And just that they didn't mention it, or they didn't seem surprised.
No. Well, that's why it's kind of her like defying gravity, haha moment, which is of course a song from Wicked.
See, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I haven't seen Wicked.
Oh my gosh, you have. Okay, so Wicked is really great though. You should.
I know what it is, but I've never seen it. I don't.
Same.
It's delightful. But anyway.
Okay.
Well, then that was lost on both of you. That's so sad. Anyway.
It's okay. I still want to see it. And I thought the funny thing, so Anson Mount, obviously, like, he didn't take on a whole song. He's not a singer. I thought he had almost a moment of sounding, again, back to Grease, like Grease Lightning. He had a bit of that vibe.
Yeah, he did,
but he did get some of the funniest lines in the whole thing. Like, I just thought he was so funny when he's, like, at the end, and he says something like, he goes, like an ensemble number? Like, so nervously. So nervous.
That's right.
Right? And when they first come out of the first one, he's like, so that happened.
Yes.
And then Kirk is like, I thought you guys had rehearsed it, but then I started doing it. Like, that stuff was great.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Well, so let's think about the logistics of, let's get into the internal logic here. So you're in a room with someone. Where's the music coming from?
Yeah, and now of course they basically just kind of shoulder shrug about that because they go,
They
"Where's that
I
music
don't know,
coming
but
from?"
it's playing everywhere.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And apparently it's coming through Subspace somehow.
But it would only play where the song is happening. Because like for example, in the bar, there was this huge number in the bar,
Right, and you
everyone
could
singing,
walk
dancing,
outside.
but no one
Yeah.
outside was hearing the music. So was it in your head or through the speakers?
Well,
Is there an entity here involved?
we didn't see them outside during that. Like, we saw people outside the room before the song started, but
you
then
watch-
they went
I thought
in.
I saw people like walking in confused about the singing.
I think
could
maybe with
be
Una
wrong.
and Kirk,
Yeah.
they were a little bit confused.
But there were other isolated, there was, Spock and her were in engineering and they had a little song, but then they'd call up to the bridge and everything was normal on the bridge. So no, I think the songs were isolated.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, where's the lyrics coming from? Like, how do they know what to sing?
How about
do
the
they know?
choreography?
Yeah, the
I mean, it's-
choreography is a bigger question. The
So-
lyrics in theory are them speaking their inner truth, and it's just coming out nicely, right?
In rhyme.
Right. So you can kind of hand wave
How
that.
did two people harmonize
Yes.
the same lyrics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as Mabanga and Chapel started singing together, which was like in that first song
Yeah, in that
when they're
first,
giving the
yeah.
status report, I was like, okay, well,
Yeah, you definitely have to ignore the fact that somehow they're in sync. Yeah.
Well, see, but that's kind of what. See, I only thought again. So, and I don't want to impose like they should have done what I thought, but it felt like there was an entity, an old
Yes.
next generation style.
Yeah.
Someone's manipulating them. They're forcing them to sing or whatever.
Well,
it almost makes
great.
sense
Mhm.
in that way.
As a callback to those old scientists, it would be great for that is Trelane could be the one responsible.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
sure.
I mean, I didn't get like why they felt like the need for the technobabble. So in the end, they had to create this scale of 344.
Yeah, that scale was like, I don't
giga-
know what that measuring exactly, but okay, like sure.
Sure. No, but the whole thing didn't. I mean, I was a little annoyed when Kirk is like, Spock, you explained that really well, and I almost understand it. But I was like, I think maybe he's just standing in for the audience there.
Yeah, I think they're trying to show the beginnings of their relationship. I think Kirk appreciates Spock and his, ways, and
That's what I thought too. Yeah,
it's just a hint of their growing understanding of each other.
and it's also the classic like Star Trek trope of like explaining a thing with a thing, like, oh, it's like a zipper. I mean, how many times have they done that? Especially like, I mean, that's a Trek trope going all the way back to TOS.
Oh, sure.
I did like how because Pike was frustrated. He's like, let's just shoot at it.
Yeah, I know. He well, that sounds good. Let's do
and
it.
that goes back to him being mortified to sing again almost. He's like, can we just shoot at it so I
Right.
don't get forced to sing? Like,
Like in front of my crew, and then his whole pose and all that.
He did have a song. I mean, he did have his own song, right? He
Sort
had
of. It was
song
short
he had
song. Yeah, a
with,
little duet.
he had
Yeah.
a private conversation, title of the song.
Yes.
Well, and that's interesting. So it stopped, and the music stopped when I think La'an shut off the.
Yeah.
So what's the logic? Yeah, okay. So this is one of those things.
You can't
There is
apply.
there is no
You're
logic.
the same. It's because it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. So give it up, Tony.
I know. Well, that's all, because I'm not a musical guy. While I was watching it, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to watch this from a pure sci-fi point of view just to see.
Yeah.
And I think it held together enough, but not at that like layer one. But once you dig into layer two, it's,
it loses it.
Don't like dig into layer two, basically.
You definitely can't look too deep.
It's just the thread that takes you from beginning to middle to end. And I have to say, like, some of the non-singing parts were kind of funny too. Like, there's this very strange exchange where when they're first talking about it, and La'an says, "What's next? Will we just poof into bunnies?" And M'Benga says, "I would prefer not to be a bunny."
Yeah.
And Spock says, "I doubt we will be bunnies."
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? And that to me was also a way of letting us know, like, we're in Crazy Town.
Yeah, this is absurd. Like,
Yeah.
there's no rules here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that was a reference, like an Alice in Wonderland reference, or it was just a random.
Yeah, I wondered about that too, but I don't think it is anything. I was trying to think about that.
Yeah,
I think it's just supposed to be just like crazy. Okay, poofy little bunnies. Like,
right. Like, you should know how silly this is. Like, the minute Una says, the last thing anyone wants is singing Klingons. And you're thinking, speak for yourself, sister. Bring it. And you know they're coming.
Yeah.
And that was Bruce Horak, was the Klingon?
Yeah. Which was surprising. I mean, I was happy to see him. I saw his name in the credits and I was like, well, who was he then? So
General Garcog. I thought those were funny. I mean, so it was him and his buddies on, a simple bridge. And those outfits they had on were just, those were straight out of like the cheesiest musical ever. Like they didn't even.
Yes. It was like weird, bad cosplay.
Yeah, but like
it was.
much gold, on their outfits. They were dressed for a musical,
yes,
whether they knew it or not.
Yeah, that was actually maybe
like a violent boy band.
Yes, totally. I know. When they got to sort of their little breakdown, kind of little hip hop like boy band, breakdown moment, I was like, oh my gosh, of course they did that for the Klingons. Like, I don't know how I feel about that, but
it's that's another one of those things of do not binge watch this show. Going from last week's Klingon War to hip hop golden Klingons.
Yeah,
not a good.
That's a shift. Yeah,
you need a few days between to deal with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I like, it was great to see Bruce again, though I didn't realize I was seeing him until I saw the credits.
I didn't know either.
Same.
But that's kind of the whole point of it. We saw him play Hammer, but then they said he was going to do something
non-Hammer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd still like to see, I guess if he just played a human, it would be very obviously him, but why not? So I hope they keep bringing him back.
I'd like to see him get to do more acting, which he didn't really get to do in this one. He was there for, just to be a funny singing
comedic
Klingon.
Relief.
Yeah. I love, there were certain nice little touches that I enjoyed too. Like there's this moment when I think it's in the first song, Mitchell and Ortega suddenly realize that they're doing all the same hand gestures on their consoles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at each other like, and trying not to do it and then still doing it. Mm-hmm. And if you look, there are other times, I think when you see people, dancing at their consoles, which I liked. And I loved like Uhura's curtsy at the end when they go, Uhura, you saved us all. And she does this little curtsy, and even her little shimmy at the beginning when she plays Anything Goes. Like there were all these little small moments along the way that just were very delightful.
Well, you could tell these guys are having a ton of fun doing it.
And did you notice at the very end, they do the whole big finale that they have to do. They finish it and people are hugging. And then Pike and Pelia just start dancing again.
Which I thought was very awkward. And I was like, what are they going to do now?
When I saw that, I thought that might have been ad-libbed.
Oh, for sure. It felt that way. It felt like maybe they thought they were even done the scene. And they started dancing and it was cute, so they kept it.
They kept it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of ad-libbing in a musical when everything's literally choreographed.
Yeah.
And that's, again, Ortegas and Mitchell doing things in sync. That's, again, this invisible hand forcing the choreography.
Yep.
I'm still looking for the invisible hand behind who's doing that. We didn't, but Mitchell was singing, Ortegas was singing.
She was good, Ortegas, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't get her own song. Mabengi didn't get a song. I don't think he's got a good voice, I'm guessing, so they didn't give him a song.
He sounded good.
He's just a little too raspy, but otherwise, it's just his voice.
I mean, I suspect with a lot of them, there was...
Oh, you can hear that they got sweetened. Some of them, but,
they had help.
But that's okay. I mean, they weren't hired to be, singers, and that's okay.
I mean, Celia and...
Geez, though, yeah. I mean, Celia and
Christina.
Celia and Christina are genuinely, singers.
Professional singers, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can tell.
Yeah. So,
and Rebecca likes to sing, and obviously even likes to sing. She
does a good job. Yeah. And Jess Bush did a surprisingly good job too, because I don't know anything about her otherwise, so I didn't know.
I know she's an artist, like does experimental, interesting art, but I thought she was great too.
Yeah.
And I loved the directing of it because I felt like it flowed so well and added so much. It's hard to do a big choreographed thing in some of those spaces. And I think they made really good use of the space and of camera movement to enhance all all the
Yeah.
routines. And even that shot where the camera, I used to complain with Discovery when they do those flips and suddenly you're
Yeah.
upside down. But the time they did it in this was perfect because it was everybody like adjusting panels and getting in each other's way.
Oh,
and
yeah.
her is saying we have to change what we're doing. And then they flip it and everybody starts leaping into this perfect.
See, even that's using it not just to use it gratuitously. That was for a reason. And
Yeah.
it was well done.
Yeah. Obviously, they hired some, genuine people who work on musicals, or they're like, we were probably surprised to get a call of, we want you to work on Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine they were shocked by that one.
Well, the director of this one, Dermot Downes, directed what I consider the gold standard of TV show musical episodes, which is the one I always talk about, Duet, Flash, and Supergirl. Like, I watch that a million times over. I watch it when I'm sad. It cheers me up. It's a big favorite. I listen to the songs separately, and I feel like this is like right there with it.
So clearly they picked the right person who has this kind of experience. Yeah.
I'd love to know more about the choreographer and working with all those guys. I hope they have footage of the rehearsals.
Yeah, that better be a bonus feature.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get all sorts of stuff in the Ready Room on Thursday. So by the time you hear this podcast, it'll be out there. And that should be a good episode. I'm sure we'll probably put it up on the site. They hired a lot of people, the guy who wrote most of the songs. These are experienced people, and
it was a duo. It was two people from Letters to Cleo. Yeah.
And you could get the soundtrack now by the time you hear this podcast on Apple and everywhere.
I need it now. I don't have it. I have to wait days. It's not fair.
They're definitely very proud of this episode. And I can look at it as quite the accomplishment that they pulled this off.
Yeah.
Especially in the context of they generally take 2 weeks to shoot an episode. I think they took some extra time in this one. There must have been a ton of extra prep time, though.
Oh, there had to be.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, and I also think like writing those songs, those lyrics were so much a part of the show. You can't write those lyrics without understanding those characters in the show.
And where they were at this point of the season.
Yes.
I mean, it's so...
It's too bad everybody's on strike because I'd love to talk to the actual writer of this in combination with the songwriters and ask about how that was, collaborated and stuff.
We'll have to wait till the strike is over and then we'll do that. I also thought that in the Uhura Spock stuff to me was also really interesting because I do feel like on the original series, they did have a connection.
They did.
They had a bond of music and they also had moments together.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this really, like, she just looks at him with such compassion and emotion and understanding, whether, before he was singing, but like she just sees him in a way that I found really moving and fit well with the established characters.
Yeah, it was, as I know we've said, and I'm sure you guys say it on your podcast too, but there's a lot of kind of uneven, maybe frustrating things about Strange New Worlds. But then they do stuff like this where you're like, I totally see how this could be their early relationship because you can see this through line that they have worked out.
Yeah.
That, there's this familiarity that can carry through and you see it. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. I can see how they already had this relationship and kind of knew each other.
Speaking of Spock, though, I'm glad that you're almost worried that the Chapel character, and they've moved beyond this, but in season 1, I was worried they were going to head where she was entirely defined by her love for Spock. And they really, even though that's been a big part of this season, the first episode, last week's episode, and this episode shows that she has her own, Spock's important to her, but she's got her own things going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
And she's ambitious, and I guess she's going to leave the ship for 3 months. But I'm sure she'll be back for season 3, and I bet she's going to be in the finale anyway.
Yeah, because she won't have left yet, I think.
I think it'll be her farewell. She'll probably go off to do her fellowship, and then when she comes back, things will have really changed.
I imagine, season 3, we'll see Spock attempting to sort of end the break between him and T'Pring or something, but somehow they still have to stay estranged because they have to stay estranged all the way until Amok Time.
Well, the thing is that they'll probably want to bring her back because she is good, and
she's good.
I think it's over between them too.
Yeah.
I think it's time for Spock to just start really Spocking it up, going,
Yeah.
full. And so I don't see them getting back together and then breaking up again, because
Well, but
they
it's not a
have to.
breakup. That's the whole thing. Like, they're just sort of betrothed and kind of estranged from each other until they're forced to come together in a mock time.
That's true. So he's
Yeah.
basically gonna ghost her,
Yeah, that's what I think.
or she's gonna ghost him.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
Cybok to show up at some point too. So things are gonna get complicated in season 3.
Yeah.
We're getting off topic from the musical, I guess.
Well, this being the penultimate episode, you kind of can't help but think about where this is going.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that this season has been leading up to the Gorn in the finale, but they haven't gorned things up. Although it might have been funny to see some singing Gorn in the episode. But
Well, they did have dancing ships, right? Like,
Yes,
there's
they did.
that. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my god, the ships are dancing. Like,
Yes,
that
yes, they
I
did.
thought was great, because I had a moment think, oh, I wish we could see the. Oh, there it is. So that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the line at the end when they're singing the finale, and it's Pelia, La'an, and Spock who sing that I confess I'll miss the singing. That's what they all sing. When this is over, I confess I'll miss the singing.
Yeah.
And one more great little Spock moment where they're all singing that big finale, and they sing Our Prime Directive. And Spock goes, not exactly.
Yes. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, that's
And then
good.
runs in, he realizes, oh no, I have to run into the final number, and he runs in and puts up his arms. I don't know, like, there are times, I feel like I have complained so many times about these kinds of goofball things that they do, and this, for some reason, it just won me over completely.
Well, I think because the entire conceit is goofy, so you're allowed to just go with it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's different than...
Right, like the one where, where Spock becomes human was tougher for me because the gravity of that felt so big, and I felt like it was so ignored
Yes.
for the comedy. But this, if you're going by the logic of a musical, then it all works.
Yeah, because the illogic, the improbability of the musical is basically just sing your heart out, right? Like, there's not much more to it than that. It's like, if you've got something that's weighing on your mind, you're going to end up singing it.
Right.
So there you go. Like, go for it. It's going to happen.
I have a question for you guys about something Kirk mentioned that I didn't have a reference for. When he talks about his last first officer who kept his distance.
Oh, yeah. I think they made that up because we don't know a lot about Kirk's, like, younger history. We just know he was a lieutenant on the Favorite for quite a while. We don't know a ton about that.
I mean, this show is filling in the blanks of Kirk's
So
backstory.
That's a pretty, like, decent little harmless, like, blank to fill because you didn't really change anything. You just said, oh, by the way, like, who I was serving under.
We never meet any of his pals on the Farragut. He always just shows up on the ship.
I know.
Yeah, that's actually kind of annoying.
I mean, they tried, he's coming for his brother or whatever, but...
Yeah. Well, like in the episode just a few ago when, with the supposed fleet captain promotion crap, so there was a whole other ship that, like, he was the fleet captain of, and in theory, the Farragut was sending people back and forth as a repair team too, and we never saw any of those people. Like,
right.
It was crazy. Anyway.
Well, and the chief medical officer played a pivotal role, but we
never saw her.
Never saw her. It's all done through dialogue, but they did actually show us the Farragut in the season 1 finale. They redressed the bridge a little bit.
But this season they haven't done it at all, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've had one peek over there at all.
Same with Captain Patel's ship. We never really see that either.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
And he's meeting up with the Cayuga or whatever all the time. It's like, what? Anyway.
Yeah, obviously they're letting these two... Yeah, because moving two Starfleets into the same location, it must be a big deal for...
Yeah.
I
guess that's budget and COVID protocols.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of the show, you can feel the COVID protocols still in place with the
so
spaces and the distance and
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's kind of amazing they were able to do an episode like this with those kind of restrictions still in place.
Yeah. And extras, like they often, a lot of times we see shots in the corridor and they're very empty. And this one actually had people in them.
Dancing people.
Dancing people.
Which
was nice. Oh, actually, Matt, this is funny, but Carol Kane has been in Wicked.
Oh, no way. I didn't know
I found out. So I was watching because I was like, does Carol Kane sing?
I didn't know either if she did, yeah.
So she's done, her mother was a jazz singer. And she says she's not a singer, but she loves to try. She says she does and here's an old reference for people. She does the Rex Harrison talk singing.
That is an old reference, yes.
Which is an old reference, but she was in Wicked and she does like to sing. And I found I stopped watching Kimmy Schmidt, I think, after the first season.
Yeah, I never got into it.
Apparently they did a musical episode and she did some singing in there. So I was glad they made her part of this.
Good.
And she got to do a little bit of singing too. But there you go. She was in your show, Matt.
Well, Wicked has, of course, become very popular and had many, many casts and, all over the world. But yeah.
Look, my wrap up for this is the same as my intro, which is I just effing loved it. I can't wait to watch it again. I'm bummed that I only have a couple of views left. I have to wait for it now to come on the official Paramount Plus so I can watch it as many times as I want.
I'm glad that they did that and that it works for you. No, I'm genuine about that because I've always said that that's kind of I'm impressed that that's what they're going for in this show, which is they're trying different things. This was something they said a long time ago. We're going to do something next year that no one's ever done in Star Trek before.
Yeah, well, they certainly did that.
So if you're going to do that, if you're going to go variety pack and you're going to make something of this style, the important thing is that do it well and do it for people who can appreciate that thing like Laurie to really enjoy it. To me, I'm, still mildly entertained by it and there's, good moments, but I'm more impressed than excited about it, because I appreciate the effort, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And at least there's that you found moments and at least there's, you can appreciate it in, kind of for what it is. So that's good. I mean, that's really all I think you can ask when they go kind of here's their favorite phrase, big swing. This really is a very crazy big swinging, so.
It's the biggest one of the season by far. I mean,
by far.
Every other episode we could, the rom-com episode, the war episode, you could point to Star Trek episodes that are at least in the zone. Yeah. This is a whole new.
This has unprecedented, yes.
Yeah.
Although it's so funny because after I watched this the first time I watched it, and then I switched over to Voyager because I'm keeping up with my friends, the Delta Flyers, and the episode I was watching opened with the Doctor singing.
Yes, that's true. The Doctor becomes an opera singer, yes.
Yeah, he's singing opera in that opening moment. And I was like, okay, right from, out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, there's definitely been singing. Uhura, Riley, Miles O'Brien.
Picard sings. Everybody sings.
Speaking of Voyager, that just made me think Voyager's probably the only other show where you could kind of make up an anomaly that would work. And have the whole crew singing because the Doctor's programming could somehow something tech the tech and everybody starts singing opera to each other, so
there we go.
A lot of those people come from theater too, so
they could have done it. Anyway, 90s Trek, you missed your window. Now Strange New Worlds gets to be the first to do it.
I know, but they did a beautiful job with it.
Like I said, pleasantly surprised by all of this.
Yeah. I mean, they were trying a lot of different genres. Some are my favorite, some are not, but this just was glorious.
Yes, and we know there are going to be people who really don't like it, and that's okay. As long as everybody just kind of acknowledges that this isn't their cup of tea, and there's like 9 other episodes in this season, so...
Oh no, if you don't like musicals, like really don't like musicals,
you're not going to like this.
Suck.
Yeah, you're not going to like it if you don't at least tolerate musicals. Yeah.
Well, I would put myself in that camp, and yet I didn't hate it,
which is good.
Mildly amused. I do not watch musicals. I don't like them. Even, I mean, I hate to say this, like, shows that I love, like The Simpsons and South Park and stuff like that, who often do musical numbers. I'm not a fan of those. All of these shows love to do musical numbers, and I'm like, well, they're not for me. Except for maybe the monorail song. But
the monorail song is great.
How can you hate the monorail song? Yeah.
So I'll tell you something about South Park, which is I was working at Comedy Central when they first, so the show was on and it was a hit. And then Matt and Trey, who created the show, came to New York for the first time. And I think it was my boss who was taking them out. And she was like, what do you want to do? And they said, Broadway musicals. That was all they wanted to do. And of course, they went on to create a smash hit Tony
Mhm.
Award-winning Broadway musical themselves.
Yes, it
But
did.
my experience working with comedians back in my TV days was that they all love to burst into song.
That's interesting. Good to
Constantly
know.
bursting into song. Yep.
Apparently, Frakes just starts bursting into song. We've seen
Yes.
some of
Yeah,
that
that's
from
right.
behind the scenes.
I've seen him do it at After Trek. He would just burst into song, and we had someone on our team, and she started singing, and they sang an impromptu duet.
Oh,
It was delightful.
I mean, if you need another reason to like Frakes, here's another reason.
Yeah,
There's too many.
I know. My list is too long.
Yes.
Well, have we done it? Have we sung for our supper?
Yes. I think we've exhausted the playbook.
We have. We've gotten to one final touch that I did love was over the end credits. They did a proper reprise of all the songs,
They did
which was
indeed.
very much like an old-fashioned musical.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And so before that, when they solved the sci-fi solution, they did roll in the super classic
Yes, they did.
bongo theme
Yeah.
from the original series.
Yeah.
That's
Which
when
is the first time they've ever, done that. Unadulterated, just plain out TOS theme. Yeah.
yeah, but I liked it. I thought it made sense for what they were doing at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess that's it for All Access Star Trek. Thank you, Matt, for joining us for this special musical review episode.
Yeah, it was happy to do it.
And we'll all be seeing each other in Vegas. And then
Yes.
next week, we will have our Vegas recap episode and the review of the season finale of Strange
Wow.
New Worlds.
Here
Yeah.
it is. Season finale.
All right. Well, we'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.